They think you're just playing a role, like you're someone else's pawn, someone else's puppet, an agent moving on someone else's orders. But what they've failed to realize is this. You're not the agent. You're the agency, the blueprint, the one who writes the code, not the one who follows it. They thought they could break you, send pressure, send chaos, send hitmen for your peace, your purpose, your mind. But you didn't flinch. You didn't fold. You sent 10 bodies back, not just in defense, but as a warning. You are not to be tested. You've moved from surviving to dominating, from waiting for permission to executing with precision. This isn't about revenge. It's about clarity. It's about showing the world, once and for all, that you are not here to fit in anyone's story. You are the story. And if this message hits, if it speaks to that part of you that refuses to be underestimated, do 3 things right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to help us reach 2,000 subscribers, and drop a message for them in comments. Let them know you didn't come to play. You came to take over. Loyalty is often seen as a quiet strength, a backbone forged in trust and commitment. But many confuse it with vulnerability, assuming that if you stay, you'll never fight back. They looked at your unwavering loyalty and thought, she won't stand up for herself. How wrong they were. Loyalty is a battlefield, and it takes courage to hold your ground when the world demands you bend. They underestimated the fierce fire burning beneath your calm facade. You carried their trust like a shield, not a chain. But while you stayed true, you were gathering strength silently, shaping a force they couldn't comprehend. In their minds, your loyalty was a leash. But for you, it was the spark that ignited the fight to come. They failed to realize that loyalty isn't passive. It's a weapon wielded by those who know their worth, and when betrayed, it becomes the most lethal force. Think of loyalty like a river, patient, persistent, shaping the landscape over time. When it breaks through, it's devastating. Your loyalty was never about submission. It was about standing firm despite the odds. They misread your dedication as weakness, but it was the calm before a storm. And when that storm hit, it changed everything. What they thought was your surrender was really your silent preparation for battle. Imagine someone mistaking a lion's patience for docility. They don't see the power waiting in the quiet, the muscles coiled beneath the stillness. That's exactly what they did to you. Their mistake was fatal, because loyalty, when broken, turns into a fierce resolve that can't be ignored. They should have known better. They should have feared what loyalty, betrayed, could unleash. So when they tested your limits, thinking they had the upper hand, you didn't crumble. Instead, you gathered every ounce of loyalty, every lesson of trust, and transformed it into a force so unstoppable it shattered their illusions. This isn't weakness. This is the weapon they never saw coming. They wanted to paint you as a victim, caught in their chaos. But you weren't aimlessly caught in their war. You were the one controlling the shot. You were the sniper, patiently waiting, calculating every move, seeing the entire battlefield with crystal clarity. You didn't flinch under fire. You chose your target and took control of the narrative. This story is about precision, not panic. Being in the crossfire means being hit from all sides, lost and confused. But a sniper, that's someone who moves with intention, who waits for the perfect moment to strike and changes the course of battle with a single bullet. That's you. You weren't a random casualty. You were the force deciding who fell and who rose. And that power was hidden in your silence, misunderstood by those who thought you were powerless. You saw every betrayal, every underhanded move, but you didn't react blindly. You planned. You watched. Your resilience wasn't reactive. It was strategic. And when the time came, you fired shots that didn't just wound, they dismantled the entire operation. This wasn't luck. It was mastery over the battlefield they thought they controlled. Think about the skill it takes to remain calm, to breathe steadily while the world around you explodes. That's not weakness. That's control. That's knowing your worth and your weapon. They never realized that you weren't just surviving their games. You were rewriting the rules on your own terms. You weren't in their crossfire. You were the one pulling the trigger, and as the dust settled, the only sound left was the echo of your power, precise, deliberate, unstoppable. That's the truth of your journey. Not a victim of circumstance, but the master of your destiny. They thought life was a playground, and you were just another piece to move around. But while they were busy playing childish games, you were constructing the arena where real battles are fought. You created the terrain, set the rules, and prepared the ground where true strength would rise. This wasn't their game anymore. It was your battlefield, and you built it to last. Games are temporary. Battlefields are legacy. They were distracted by momentary wins and petty tricks, but you focused on the bigger picture. Every setback was a brick in your foundation, every betrayal a trench dug deep to protect your future. You weren't just reacting to their moves, you were designing the landscape where you'd emerge victorious. Building a battlefield takes vision, resilience, and unwavering determination. It means understanding your enemies, but not letting them define you. They saw your pain and thought it made you weak, but it only made you wiser. You transformed pain into power and weakness into strategy. Your battlefield is proof of your growth, not a trap, but a throne. Imagine someone crafting an empire out of ruins, while others waste time on fleeting distractions. That's the difference. While they gambled with your loyalty, you were forging a legacy. This isn't just survival, it's dominance. You set the stage, and now they're forced to play by your rules. So, next time they try to pull you back into their games, remember, You're not on their field anymore. You built your own. And in that arena, you hold all the cards. Truth is uncomfortable, especially when it holds a mirror to those who prefer illusions. You spoke honestly, laid your soul bare, and showed the raw, unfiltered reality. But what did they do? They turned away, afraid to face the reflection of their own deceit and betrayal. Your truth was a light that exposed their shadows, and they fled from it. It takes immense courage to be the bearer of truth, especially when it's unwelcome. They expected you to sugarcoat, to stay silent, to play along, but you refused. You handed them a mirror, clear, unshattered, and dared them to look inside. And that's when they cracked, retreating into denial and lies. You weren't just speaking words, you were shattering facades. Think about how often people avoid truth because it demands change, accountability, and growth. They chose comfort over confrontation, lies over lessons. Meanwhile, you stood firm, knowing that truth is the foundation of real power. You weren't trying to punish them. You were trying to free yourself. But freedom scares those who prefer control. Your truth wasn't just a message, it was a reckoning. It forced them to question everything they built on deceit. And when the truth is this powerful, it shakes foundations and topples empires. They ran because they knew that facing you meant facing their own failures, and they weren't ready for that fight. So hold on to your truth. It's the fiercest weapon you own. While they hide behind illusions, you walk boldly in the light, unstoppable and unbreakable. Once, you were the goal they sought to control, a mission they believed was theirs to complete. But somewhere along the way, you transformed from a target into a force to be reckoned with. You ceased to be a pawn in their plans. You became the storm that disrupts their entire strategy. You are no longer the mission. You are the threat. When people aim at you, it's because you embody everything they fear to lose control over: your power, your voice, your independence. They believed they could finish you, but they didn't realize that you are your own architect. You rewrote your purpose and shattered their expectations. You turned their mission into your war cry. Being the threat means owning your strength unapologetically. It means breaking the cycle of victimhood and becoming the catalyst for change. You didn't wait for someone else to decide your fate. You claimed it, and in doing so, became the nightmare to those who once tried to manipulate you. Think of a force of nature, a wildfire, relentless and consuming. That's what you became. They tried to cage you, but instead, you broke free and set the world ablaze with your truth and tenacity. The threat you pose isn't about destruction alone. It's about rebirth, power reclaimed, and futures rewritten. So embrace this new identity. You're not their mission anymore. You're the power that redefines the game, the force they underestimated, and the threat they can't contain. Absolutely. Here's the continuation with all remaining headings, each expanded with 5 long immersive paragraphs, crafted to deeply engage and move your audience. Closure is often seen as a destination, a place where wounds are healed and stories end. But for you, closure isn't a passive waiting game. You don't sit around hoping for an apology or an explanation. You don't chase empty promises or hollow words. Instead, you take charge, and what you deliver is far more powerful. Real, tangible consequences that echo louder than any apology ever could. They might have believed they could leave you hanging, suspended in pain or confusion, but you refuse to be stuck in their unresolved chaos. Every betrayal, every slight, every broken promise you endured was fuel, not for tears, but for the fire that ignites your actions. You don't seek their validation or remorse. You seek justice on your terms. And that justice is undeniable. Consequences aren't revenge. They're a reflection of your strength and boundaries. You don't lash out of anger. You respond with precision and power. They learn that every action they took against you carries weight. You've become the storm that balances the scales, not by begging for answers, but by showing them what happens when they cross a line that should never be crossed. Think of it as reclaiming your peace through empowerment. Instead of hoping for closure, you create a new reality where they feel the ripples of their decisions long after they've walked away. That's your message. Actions have consequences, and you are the one who defines what those are. So hold your head high and remember, you are not chasing closure because you've already built a legacy of consequences that no one can ignore. When they tried to steal your peace, they believed they were winning. But peace isn't a fragile gift that can be snatched away. It's a battlefield you defend with every fiber of your being. And when they attacked your calm, you didn't just stand your ground. You evolved into something stronger, fiercer, and unrecognizable. You didn't just survive their storm, you grew beyond it. Peace for you isn't silence or submission. It's a dynamic force forged in struggle. When they aimed to shatter your tranquility, you met their violence not with defeat, but with transformation. Each wound became a lesson, each betrayal a catalyst for growth. You didn't just patch up your peace, you rebuilt it on a foundation of strength and wisdom that no one can shake. They expected you to crumble, to fade quietly into the background. Instead, you responded with evolution. You took the pain, anger, and loss they delivered and turned it into power. You became a new version of yourself, smarter, sharper, and untouchable. Your peace is now a fortress, fortified by experience and resilience. Consider this: every great leader, every iconic figure who has faced adversity, has used their struggle to evolve. You are no different. Their attempts to disrupt your peace were the very thing that propelled you forward, forcing you to adapt and thrive where others might have broken. So when they come knocking on your peace again, remember, you've returned fire with evolution, and that fire burns brighter than any darkness they try to cast. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, a sign of giving up or lacking the courage to fight back. But your silence was something far more powerful, a deliberate choice, a masterful strategy. You held your words, not because you had nothing to say, but because you knew when to speak and when to wield quiet strength. Silence was your weapon in a world full of noise. When they expected you to scream, to lash out, to crumble, you chose to stay composed. Your silence wasn't absence. It was presence in its most potent form. It spoke volumes without uttering a sound. It confused them, disarmed their attacks, and forced them to question their assumptions. While they rushed to fill the void with their lies and schemes, you maintained control through quiet confidence. Think of silence like a chess game. Every move calculated, every pause intentional. In a world where words can be twisted and used against you, silence became your shield. It protected your truth and kept your power intact. It was the calm before the storm, the breath before the strike, the pause that made all the difference. And when the time came to break your silence, your voice carried the weight of experience and clarity. It was no longer about reacting. It was about commanding. Your silence was never surrender. It was the quiet strength that led to your ultimate victory. Kindness is a gift, but some see it as weakness, an endless well to exploit. They fed on your kindness like it was theirs to take, draining your energy, your trust, your spirit. But the day came when you realized kindness is not an infinite resource to be abused. You decided to cut off their supply and reclaim your power, setting boundaries that protected your heart. It's heartbreaking to realize that your generosity was mistaken for permission to hurt you. You gave love, patience, and understanding, hoping it would build bridges. Instead, it built prisons where they trapped your goodwill and used it against you. But kindness is not synonymous with weakness. It is a choice, and you chose to protect yourself. Cutting off the supply meant saying no. It meant walking away from those who took without giving back. It meant understanding that your kindness should never come at the expense of your dignity. And with each boundary you set, you regained pieces of yourself that were lost to toxic relationships and false promises. Imagine kindness like a garden. If you keep watering weeds, they choke out your flowers. You realized you needed to stop nurturing what was destroying you and start cultivating your own growth. That's what makes your kindness so powerful. It's deliberate, selective, and fiercely guarded. So you stopped feeding the hungry mouths that didn't deserve your generosity. You reclaimed your kindness, turning it into a force that heals, protects, and empowers, not one that chains or diminishes you. They tried to trap you in who you were, a version of yourself shaped by their expectations, limited by their judgments. But that version is dead and buried. You've shed the skin they clung to and risen anew, transformed by fire and fueled by the refusal to remain small. The person they thought they could control no longer exists. It's a painful truth that growth requires leaving parts of ourselves behind, especially the parts others tried to define or diminish. You had to bury the version that doubted, that waited for approval, that tolerated less than you deserved. That version belonged to their story, but your new self writes your own narrative, bold and unbreakable. Transformation is messy. It demands courage to face who you were and choose who you will become. You've done the hard work, digging through pain, confronting fears, and rebuilding from the ground up. The ashes of your old self have fertilized the soil for your rise, stronger and wiser. Think of it like a phoenix. To soar higher, it must burn what it once was. Your rebirth isn't just symbolic, it's real. The old you is gone, and in its place stands someone